And you figure this out. Let's say you were a slave in today's society. Well, that basically means this. You're not being covered. Inadequate lifestyle. Basically what I said. You're not getting enough food, 3 meals a day, not having clothes to wear properly to fit in society. You don't have a car to drive to and from work or to and from a grocery store. Why do you need a car? Well, life is designed around a car. Big box stores and food stores are too far away from living. They're more than walking distance. If you're living in -10 or -50, it's kind of impossible to walk with a shopping cart in -50 weather and snow, isn't it? With the amount of clothes you have to keep warm with your kids or even by yourself. It's adequate to have a vehicle. Plus you have to have enough money to heat your house in -50 or even -10. Nobody likes to walk in the west coast of British Columbia in the rain either. You might get hypothermia from being soaking wet. I lived outside for 2.5 years, and I don't like walking in the rain anymore myself. We have the right to work, the right to own property in this country, and the right to a higher education that we have to pay for. Without higher than a minimum wage, or not a minimum wage, the living wage, we won't be able to do that for our family or ourselves. Minimum wage is inadequate for a lifestyle to exist because you need a living wage. It's below the standards of 3 meals a day, adequate living, a vehicle, and clothing to survive in today's society. Period. If it costs you $2,000 a month for all your stuff to live, and you make $2,500 a month, you have $500 left. And if you work it out, that's 32 cents an hour extra you made on 160 hours. So really you only made a wage of that. Because why? In slavery, they fed you some food, they clothed you, and housed you. Did they give you heat? I don't know. It doesn't say that. But it's slavery because you're not making any extra money, like it said, in serfdom, or living wage, to pass on to the next generation. You can never own property, which you can sell and sell it later for your retirement fund to live in an old folks home if it's necessary, because your kids don't want to look after you in an old folks home, or pass that money on to your kids. Period. You got to make what, $50 an hour? Not even a teacher makes $50 an hour, do they? So, slavery. In the 21st century, we're still living in slavery or serfdom. And in medieval times in the feudal system, the Queen's just standing as a figurehead above our parliament. The United States doesn't have a figurehead like Canada does. And we still pay the Queen taxes per year, according to Maclean's. Period. And she still gives her Queen's speech, or throne speech, every year, dictating on how we're supposed to live life. We still have nobility, and the merchants, and the knights, being the police force, and the military. So, we need adequate lifestyles in society, so we can have 3 meals a day, a place to live, a car, and all that to survive in society. To be an adequate lifestyle according to human rights and Charter of Rights, and so on. You can look it all up yourself and find it and see the truth in it all. live by your means is impossible in society when you're living below the standard of living to live, when you're living worse than a slave did in the 1750s when slavery supposedly ran out, even white slavery or child slavery with chimney sweepers or whatnot. What's the problem? Who knows? Is it since women's lived and women worked? In Timothy, they say women weren't supposed to have jobs of authority, speak, teach, and so on in the King James Bible. But we got equal rights now, and that's the way it works. I don't know. Can you believe Genesis? How fast the world was formed? That's another question. And hey, why would they come up with laws like that in ancient times? Or a way of life like that? Did people get out of hand in those days? And that's why they have that? Who knows? Like I said, slavery, an adequate lifestyle, when you're living less than somebody in jail as well, who get 3 meals a day, a bed to sleep in, and physical activities every day, and have the right to do work as well. Privatization, well, you can only work if the work's there and they can afford to pay you, or if they're not being discriminating to you in a cult like, I guess, communism, hey? Told to work, you go to work, you show up, they pay for all your living, or do they pay you a wage? Who knows? You work, you get paid. Period. Nothing's free in life. And if you're on social services, well, you're living way below the standard of living, and you're scraping by with no energy to get up and go to look for work, or the adequate clothing to do so. And if they mess you up psychologically, with psychological abuse through your life, with psychological drugs that take your hormones away, then you're messed up even more. And the government's forced to give you hormones, and now you're controlled by a medication/drug to live the rest of your life adequately, paid by the government, because they're the ones who messed you up from birth or throughout life somehow, not by choice, but by them doing it, and taking your right away to have family, children, to exist your bloodline further. And hey, we don't have history of 300-400 years, do we? Only the monarchs and the nobilities do. They're the only ones that have houses that are 750 years old, like the Spencers, like Buckingham Palace, and a few buildings in Canada that are a few hundred years old. Anyways, slavery in the 21st century, we all need more than a living wage. Because why? After your expenses is considered your wage.